Welcome to The Spacious Place with Andrea Best, brought to you by CKJ Live. The Spacious Place is where you get to be who you really are. Not what your experiences say, not what your role as a wife or a mom says, not even what your job title says or doesn't say. You get to be who you were fearfully and wonderfully created to be. Join me as we explore the woman inside, the one who longs to be set free. Let's talk with women who journeyed and found themselves surrounded by endless amounts of opportunity. And at this point, they're unstoppable. So if you're ready to be you, truly you, make room, grab a pillow, and welcome to The Spacious Place with Andrea Best. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for joining me to another episode of The Spacious Place with Andrea Best. So I have a really interesting topic today. It's something that I kind of actually been thinking about for a long time, but never really just, sat down and actually talked about it. A couple of years ago, I kind of found myself in this place of where am I now? We had moved back to Illinois and we bought a house and, started to get settled into things. And after being in Virginia for about 3 years, being newly married, being a new mom, I had come back this kind of evolved new person. But one of the main things that seemed to have me in this constant loop of uncertainty was friendships. And I felt lonely. I was kind of longing for this best friend, or what I thought the idea of a best friend in my head was. And I went through this season of what I now call solitude, but then I actually called it loneliness because it was something that God knew I needed, but obviously at the time I didn't know that I needed that. So after going through this, point of solitude, I still realized that I wanted to build healthy, meaningful friendships. But you know how difficult it can be to even maintain and let alone establish a friendship when you're grown. So it was hard. It was hard for me. But today I'm going to be talking about navigating friendships in adulthood. And I won't be doing it alone. My guest for today couldn't be a more appropriate guest to talk about this. She and I we established and have maintained, keyword maintained, a healthy, authentic friendship as adults. In the midst of being wives, moms, working women, we've been able to truly see how difficult but rewarding it is to have a genuine friendship. Ladies, I call her Fran, but I'd like to introduce Kristen Dean to the Spacious Place. Hey, girl.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited.
Of course. This is going to be such a great conversation. I'm so excited that we are going to be talking about this because I feel like you're the perfect person to talk about this subject with, because we are actually living this in our friendship. Yeah. We've established and maintained this friendship as adults with everything that we have going on in our personal lives. We have to learn this. And I think this is such a great topic because it's not something that we just sit down and think about.
It's not. And we have had our challenges too, and we've overcome. So I feel like just having a platform to talk about that, because I know we're not the only ones who are in a new phase of life and wanting genuine, meaningful friendships.
Right.
It's hard when you're at this stage.
Yeah. I think it's important to know what you want in friendships when you're an adult, because I think when you're growing up, you're kind of just put in friendships because of maybe proximity, just being in school, going to the same college, being roommates. It's just, there are a lot of factors that you just happenstance to be friends with people, and
Absolutely.
It's not really intentional.
It's not. And I 100% agree with that. I feel like, and even for me, I don't think I placed as much value on friendship as I do now. I think I kind of took just the idea of friendship for granted growing up, not really knowing um, what what that would mean later in life and how significant having an adult friendship, a meaningful adult friendship with a mutual respect, really felt like.
Yeah, yeah. So when you start to think about what friendship looks like to you in adulthood, like, do you think about having to even redefine what friendship means?
Absolutely, I think that for me, um, it means to me, it goes along with where I'm at in my life.
Yeah.
My friendships today, they have to match where I'm at, what season I'm in. It's not going to look the same, like you said, as high school or even college, because they have to be so intentional. You don't have time as a mom, as a wife, to just go to your friend's house every day, hang out, talk on the
Hmm.
phone all day. And so when you have had friendships like that, and your friendships in the past are used to, or you're used to friendships being in that way, when you are an adult with kids and a husband who need attention and just life and work, you have to make it a point to say, okay, I have to make time if I want this friendship to mean something. So
Yeah.
um, just friendship in general just takes on a whole new meaning for me. And I think the main difference between then and now is just the value, and having that person feel the same way. You have to be intentional, and that person has to be intentional as well.
Right.
Or you're just going to be buddies that speak every now and then,
Right.
with no depth.
Exactly. I think one thing that I've had to really think about when I consider what friendship means to me right now is that I have to actually give people the opportunity to be my friend. As crazy as
Yeah.
that sounds, like I don't think I've
That's
really
so real.
right. I don't think I've made room for people to actually be my friend. And that's something that I'm working on because I think it's just so easy to just be real surface level, you know?
Why do
And
you think that? Why do you think that you have to do that? Or why do you think that you haven't done that?
I think I've really tried to protect myself from being hurt or being abandoned in friendships. Um, I can remember um, the first kind of, it wasn't an argument that we had, but it was like a,
Tell it like it is,
I
girl.
know, it was like a riff or whatever. But so what really happened was, I don't want to give too many details.
Let's
I
revisit
know,
this.
right?
We haven't talked about this
But
since it happened.
right. So I'll give a short synopsis. So basically, Kristen felt that I had let her down, and I didn't think that I had. Um, and so we were just really on two different pages when it came to what happened. And the way that we responded was completely different. Kristen is the type of person, like, she needs space, she needs time to think. Um, she knows herself so well that she's like, you know what, I need to step back, I need to get quiet, let me think. And I'm the type of person, I'm
Mhm.
like, no, let's talk about it right now. I don't care how you feel. I don't care if you yell at me, like, let's just talk about it. And that's just not the way everybody operates. And
Yeah.
so when she did that, when she took a step back and, was really quiet, not really texting as much, not calling, I just wasn't used to it. And the behavior of that looked familiar to other friendships that I had been in, where people did that and they abandoned the friendship. And so
Yeah.
when that happened, I'm like, okay, I know this is somebody that I really want to be friends with. Um, and I know that this friendship was something that God did. So either I have to fight my natural response, which is just to cut off the friendship and be like, you know what, I don't want to deal with this. or I can push past that and allow myself to see something different or see what's on the other side of this. And that sounds like super deep from a really minor conflict that we had.
Yeah.
It was really minor, but I feel like it was good for us to have that in the beginning stages of our friendship. But to answer your question, I think that's one of the reasons that I haven't really opened up as much as I could, because I'm in like this trying to protect myself from being hurt or being abandoned in a friendship when I feel like I'm getting close to someone.
Yeah, from my perspective, give my side of the story. I think you weren't, neither one of us, I think, were wrong. I think the main difference between me and you was that I have had friendships where I fall out with people all the time, and we just, and they, know me enough to give me space, and then we come back thick as thieves. So I think just the difference in our background of previous friendships, and it could also have something to do with family as well, because I feel like family molds you in a way, and kind of like molds what you view friendship to be. But I think I never, not once, felt like, oh, I'm never going to talk to her, I'm not going to be her friend anymore, because that just wasn't what it was. But what I learned from that situation is that you can't take for granted that somebody is just going to understand that you need 2 and 3 days to think. You and just having compassion for you, and really a mature moment where I had to say, okay, it's not just about me. This is a new found friendship. This is something. And in the situation, y'all, it was so dumb. I was just I was in a I was in a place of feeling like I didn't have anybody. And I think Drea in that season or in that little time period was somebody who I knew I could count on. And when I called on her and she wasn't available for me, I just went into a kind of like a little dark place of like, okay, well, I really can't count on nobody right now. And that's extremely dramatic, but that was where I was at. And later I was able to come to her and explain that. And I think the reason why I needed some days to think about it is because I wasn't really sure why I was mad. I knew that it really didn't make sense, but I know, but I knew that, it was still a feeling and still an emotion. And I think that's the main thing, just when you're navigating through, just not to shameless plug the title, but when you're navigating through an adult friendship where you have to be intentional, you have to think about that kind of stuff, and you have to give time to it, and you have to nurture it, especially because our friendship was so new. Right. Do you remember how we came back together and reconciled that, or how we overcame? I remember small details, but from your perspective.
I think we were like really honest with each other. And one thing that I like about our friendship is that we handle each other with care. Kind of like you mentioned, you just have to be mindful of the type of friendship. And so I think what we did is we just talked it out, like plain and simple. We talked it out, which is a lot of times
no holding back,
right?
Nothing off limits to say,
right? Because, and I think that's something that we don't do as adults. We don't even take the time to talk things out a lot of times. We're just too busy. We're too busy to talk it out, Yeah. And I think that
we're just afraid that the other person won't receive it in a way that you mean it, or that it'll cause more harm. I mean, that's a real thing. Some people can't handle the truth or don't want to talk it out. It's better to just brush it over.
Yeah. And I know one thing that I mentioned before was I felt like our friendship was something that God did. What do you think about God ordained friendships, like praying for something, praying for someone, and then God sending them, for a specific season?
Well, I will say, let's just paint a picture. When we knew each other in college, but we weren't really, I mean, we hung out a few times, but we didn't really develop like a true relationship. And I remember specifically praying, and this is not to say that I didn't have good friends, because God has always blessed me and surrounded me with just good, solid friendships. Not that we talk every day or around each other all the time, but people that I know I can count on. But I was in a very specific season. I was a newlywed. I had toddlers, a toddler, and I was pregnant. And I just felt so alone. And not alone like there was nobody around me, but just alone in a as far as just having somebody to truly understand and to truly empathize the season that I was in. And I prayed. I remember I reached out to my auntie, and my auntie Rachel, shout out to her. She was just like, when you want something or when you're feeling a certain way, pray and ask God about it. He cares about your friendships. And that is a real thing, people. Yes. He cares about the friendships that are in your life. And he cares that, you are feeling lonely or sad or like you can't relate to folks. And I felt it's selfish to pray for a friend that understood me, because I was surrounded by friends. But the way that you came about and how it was just so smooth and so God, I knew that it was a direct answer to prayers. It was literally like one day we weren't talking and we were living our lives, still knowing each other, still talking to each other, at least from my perspective. And then the next day we clicked like a lock and key. Like everything we were able to just share. And it was such a freedom just to talk about everything from marriage to kids to beauty to our sex lives to just everything. Yeah. And to feel so comfortable. I know, like, it didn't hit me right away, but like as time went on, I'm like, oh, okay, God, this is you answering my prayer to send somebody that I can just relate to and really develop something new with as a grown adult wife and mother.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah, I think what you said about just praying, asking God, like that's something that I mean, that's where we need to start. if you're feeling like you need someone in your life that that you don't have, I think the first thing that we should do is pray and ask God, okay, is there someone who needs to be in my life that could speak to this area or could help me in this area or who could motivate me? I think that that's so important to know that God cares so much, even about our friendships, that he will send someone specifically for you. Yeah.
It really is. It baffles me that God cares for us in that way. I was just thinking about this week, like, why do you even care about my insignificant little request? And that's just a testament to who God is.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful, because what you brought in my adult life was just a sense of understanding and more of a representation of God has me. Mm-hmm. Like he has my back in every single area. I got you covered. And after coming out of such a difficult time, and just even being in a difficult time, it was a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Even though we had a little argument.
Went a little tit for tat. So now I know we talked about God ordained friendships, but you also have these other friends who you were surrounded by. Do you find it that you categorize your friendships? I know this is like a topic that I kind of struggle with too, as far as friendship goes. What do you think about categorizing your friendships?
Girl, well, you know what? It's so funny that you use the term or the phrase categorize. When I was about 17 years old, one of my aunties, she told me that, don't feel so overwhelmed. Because I was surrounded by a lot of friends who I loved. But you know how you have friends that you might be more of their friend than they really are your friend. Mm-hmm. And really just knowing that that's okay. It's not, that doesn't mean that you love them any less. That does not mean that you have to shun them or forget you because you ain't on the same level as Tanisha. That's my standard Black girl name. You know what I'm saying? No, that's Tanisha. So you just out of my life. No, I feel like God will give you different friends for different things. And I feel like you might have an everything friend. You can pray with them. You can talk to them. You can go out, party with them. You can laugh with them, kick it with them, text them, call them. You might have an everything friend, but then you might have a friend who you call on just to pray. Mm-hmm. You might have a friend who you know this is your kick it friend. And it's not in a oh, let me put you in this box, let me put you in that box type of thing. It's not that. It's a mutual understanding, I think, mm-hmm. more so than you just telling your friends where they are and who they are in your life. Mm-hmm. But I also think even if the outside friend does not know, it's okay for you to know in your heart, because I feel like a lot of times when we get hurt by friends, or we get hurt just in general, even family, we tend to, sometimes that friend is on such a high pedestal. When that hurt happens, it's kind of like, okay, you're out of my life and you're crushed.
Yeah.
But really knowing that just because you're hurt by someone does not mean that they have to evacuate your life completely. Yeah. You can still care for that person. You can still love that person. They can still have value in your life. It just may not be on the same level. Now, do you feel like just in your life that you have like just written people off, or have you kind of like, oh, okay, you did that, so you might not be in drawer 1, but you might be in drawer 2.
No, absolutely. I absolutely feel like I have been the cutoff queen, because
no. Okay, cutoff queen.
But honestly, I didn't really know. I think I'm just starting to learn that people, one, that friendships can look differently. Everybody doesn't need to be your best friend. I think I'm just starting to learn that one. But then I think I'm also starting to learn that it's okay to have, a friend who may not be, the friendship may not look like it used to look. I think that's just hard for me to understand how that even works, what that even looks like. Just because even, in my friendships as a child, I remember, if somebody did something I didn't like, I wasn't friends with them anymore. And I never, like I was saying before, kind of with our conflict, I never really saw what the other side of conflict looked like. I never really saw what the other side of somebody irritating me looked like. And so I was always just quick to be like, you know what, I don't need this. And even it really started to, I think, intensify when I got married, because me and Ray, my husband, were really becoming one. And if I felt like a friendship wasn't worth it, I was just like, you know what? I got my husband, my friend, and I don't need anybody else. Which obviously,
until your husband get on your nerves,
exactly. Which obviously is not healthy. But I think that now that I understand more of who I am as an individual, I don't feel the need to just write everybody off because, I don't like something. And I actually, Kristen and I were having a conversation earlier about why I, may feel like this. And I think it really does have something to do with accepting people for who they are. If you want to explain a little bit kind of about what you said, I think it was super.
Sure. Well, I'll just give the story that I gave you. I won't say the friend's name. It was back in after college. It was, or not after college, before college, after high school. I was really getting deep into God. Like I was having my little girl chat meetings. I was having Bible studies, and I was really feeling myself. I was getting to a place where I'm like, kind of looking down on people who weren't doing everything that I was doing. If you weren't having Bible study, if you weren't saving yourself till marriage, if you weren't doing just all of these different things that I felt like you had to be doing to even just be in my circle, I felt like I would literally look down on people and judge them for where they were. And these are not just people who were my good, genuine friends. And I kind of went through a little cutoff phase until God brought that thing full circle. Because just because you are in a season of hallelujah and love you God in Bible studies, live a little bit, because the next week you could be looking like a little crackhead on the street. And the same friends that you tossed to the side, in my case, were the ones that came and were there for me, like for real there for me. And it was just such a reality check. And I don't even know if I even ever talked to the friend that I'm talking about this. We're still friends to this day. But I think that I just value her in such a way. Like, it transformed the way I viewed people in general. Like, don't you ever look your little pointy nose down on somebody just because you are in a good place. Because live a little bit longer, sweetheart. You are not going to always be in that good place. Yeah. And the same person you wrote off because of a judgment is going to be the same one that's there for you later. And that's not to say, if somebody is just acting a fool, that you can't set boundaries in your life, but it's to say, get off your high horse. And this is just me talking to me. Get off your high horse.
Me too.
And truly learn to love unconditional. Yeah. Why? Because are you that person's friend because of, what they're doing and only what they can bring to your life? Or do you love that person for who they are? Is it an unconditional thing? Is it if their season changes, will you be able to still allow yourself to be a friend and really love literally how God loves? And I think just being married, you mentioned, Ray was your best friend. Terrence, we were friends, but I had to learn how to be an unconditional friend. And that was something that was hard. Yeah. And I'm still learning every day. I haven't arrived, but I think that just really not basing who you allow in your space just off of judgment, just strictly off of judgment. I don't think that that's beneficial to you or to me.
Yeah. I know we were you talking about understanding your place in your friends' lives. I'm thinking about how you said you may know that there's a friend who you always call to pray, or you always call to talk about parenting stuff. How do you understand being that friend? How do you understand, like, I think because I was in a season where I always felt like I was pouring out.
Yeah.
How do you navigate even that, being pulled on in your friendships?
That's a really, really excellent question. Every question you ask me just makes me reflect on the women in my life who've taught me things. And I'll never forget my mother just told me that, you cannot give from an empty cup. And so, and I've always, just in life in general, been that friend that people call to pray, people call when they're going through something, people pull on. And I never resented it or anything like that. But at the end of the day, I would feel so bogged down. I would feel so heavy and just like I'm carrying everybody's stuff and they out having a good time. And I'm on the wall praying for them on my knees, just trying to, Lord, please help them, speaking in tongues and stuff. And they out living their best life. And it really, it makes a difference when you are full. Like when you are full, and when I say full, I mean just full of having your devotion time with God, having those friendships that pour into you, and just doing things that fill your cup. so that when somebody does come to you with an issue, you are not taking that issue on and encapsulating it as your life, and you just gotta help them till they die, or I mean, so they won't die. That's not your job.
Yeah.
Your job can be to pray for them, but recognize that you can only give so much, and you can offer them prayer, and then you also, once you're done, I will always, my mom, release it back to God. When somebody pours out on you, release that back to God, for sure. I I think that that's just so key, and not being resentful about
Yeah.
it, and just knowing that, thanking God enough that He has given you the wisdom, the insight to pray for people and to be there for people in the way that they need it, and He is the one that's filling your cup. Now, it's not for acknowledgement from anywhere else, and that's not. I mean, I'm saying it like it's easy, but it takes a very mature person to come to that place, and I haven't arrived completely, but it's maturity. It's maturity for real.
Yeah. Now, how do you maintain your friendships now? Like, do you have friendship maintenance? Like, what is it? Is that a thing?
Girl. Well, I think, and it's funny that you ask that, because it's hard when you are maintaining so many other things like the marriage,
right,
and your kids. I think you just have to be able to identify the season that you're in, and if you don't have that mutual respect, where that friend has the same understanding or knows you and is willing to put in the same amount of maintenance, it could be hard. I'm curious to know how you would answer that question, because I might be a little stumped.
Well, I think you do have to understand your different friendships, because I think some friendships require less maintenance. I think some you just have to understand the friend. I think, like, if I could speak to maybe me and your friendship, I think both of us know when we are feeling disconnected from each other. And so
for sure,
we do certain things, like we check in with each other just to make sure that, and for me, that I know that I'm thinking about you. It could just be a text, it could be a Marco Polo, but it's something to know that, girl, you on my mind, I'm praying for you. But
right.
I think in other friendships that I may have, it may not, I may not talk to them often. I may talk to them, once a month or a couple times a month. But I think when we do talk, it is intentional. Just like we were saying from the beginning, everything has to be intentional from this point, or friendships will die. And they might not even die, but they will become complacent, and just kind of stagnant.
Right.
Yeah.
And and they can, I mean, essentially, I feel like they can die. I know I have friends that I have known since I was like very young, like third grade. Now, we may talk every 2 or 3 months, and that talk may only be like a small check-in, or just a hi, how you doing? But it's important to me to maintain the friendship even still. And there's like I said, that mutual understanding is everything, is so key.
Yeah.
You have to be on the same page, because if you're not, I mean, that is like the road leading down to the friendship ending, or it's just not being as meaningful as you may have had before, which I don't necessarily think is a horrible thing. But if it's in your heart to keep the friendship, and if you care for that person, reach out when you think about it. Like, don't just say, "Oh, I've been thinking about Sally." No, we ain't thinking about Sally. I've been thinking about Shaniqua, and 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 just never text her, or never Marco Polo, or never give a phone call.
Right.
Very, very rare that I phone call. these days. I don't know what's
Yeah, I
wrong.
know.
Just I don't know. I've always been that way too.
Yeah. So, what happens? I guess maybe you could speak to this when you feel like a friendship does need to end, or, you know, because sometimes I feel like as adults, we don't really end friendships, we just kind of stop talking to people. Um, like, so, or do you think that it's important to have a conversation? Is that important in every situation? Just kind of speak to that.
Girl, no, I don't. I have two different scenarios though. I think sometimes in a scenario where you don't necessarily need to announce it, if it will do more harm than good,
Mm-hmm.
if you know that having this conversation may tear that person up or might just cause extra drama and detriment, that's not 1000% necessary.
Yeah.
I don't always feel that is important to say, okay, don't ever call or text me anymore
Mm-hmm.
because we're not going to be friends. Now there's a middle ground where sometimes you do need to have a conversation so that person, like if there has been hurt involved or just years of pain involved. But I'll give an example, and I don't think I've ever told you this. I think I mentioned her before, but I had a very, very good friend. We were friends from high school and through college. And she, within the past few years, like from the time I got married, she recently joined this group of people, and they had just have a different type of belief system. And there was always so much conflict whenever we talk. And I really try my hardest to still stay connected and to still be her friend. But I had to have a tough conversation and say, okay, is this causing me more frustration? Is this causing her more frustration?
Mm-hmm.
What do I really see happening if we continue to try to make things how they were before? And so I really had to lay it out for her, and I just explained, our lives are going in different directions, and she agreed. It wasn't like it was just me. And I think that we should, because I don't like the surface thing,
Yeah.
especially for somebody that you were so close to. I was like, I don't want to be surface with you. I don't know how to not be honest. That's just who I am. And I think we should just, let things go, and we don't have to try to be friends anymore. That doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean I don't check on her still, because I do, and
Right.
she may or may not respond. But the I had to sever that friendship thing because it was becoming fake. It was
Mm-hmm.
becoming more of a hardship. But what do you think? I don't know. Like, just
No.
now in your life now, like, do you feel that you would like address something directly and just say, um, yeah, this is not working out? Or would you just cut them off?
Ooh. Um, now, the more
Cut off
mature,
clean.
right, the more mature me, um, I do think that there are times when you need to have a conversation, especially if you have cared about the person. If that person has been a friend to you, I think it's to honor the friendship or what was. I think it's just best to have a conversation. Um, I saw something earlier about being brutally honest and how sometimes that's just not necessary. And so it's
I
just
agree.
like, sometimes you just have to, as much as you want to tell the person maybe about themselves or about how bad of a friend they've been or whatever, it's just not necessary. And it may just be okay to bow out gracefully. And if
Yeah.
they reach out, you have conversation. But um that whole thing about the maintenance part, you may not need to keep up with that because
Right.
it just may not be necessary. But yeah, I think it's both. There are certain situations that you have to have a conversation, and you also have to see, is this what's going to come of this if we have this conversation? Do I just want to get my words out? Do I just want to say what I got to say? Excuse me. Do you
Exactly.
or do you really think it's going to be beneficial to have this conversation? So I think that's just important to know the friend, know the friendship, and what's going to come after this. What am I pouring into, negativity or positivity, you know?
Absolutely. And just knowing, sometimes you just know this, you might know the season that the other person is in. And it's kind of
Right.
like, is what I'm saying, like you said, just me trying to say what I gotta say. Is it really truly necessary? Is this going to help this person change or be
Right.
different? Do they want to change? Do they want to be different? And it's kind of like, no, probably not. And if they're in that place, that's okay. But all of these things, I think, just to the point of being an adult, it comes with maturity. This
Yeah.
is not for the faint of heart. Like friendships now are not, they're not for the faint of heart. They're just you it can have you up a creek if
Yeah.
it, and if you don't have an outlet to give it to, and that main outlet needs to be God.
Yeah.
Period.
Right. Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. So we have a little bit more time. So I want to ask you, what has been the biggest shock or surprise that you found maybe about yourself, about the way you navigate through kind of your friendships? Like, what's been the biggest shock?
Ooh, um, I would probably say um, just how uh, much grace where I am now as an adult woman that I give to my friends. I feel like I used to be such a straight shooter, such a cutthroat person, and God literally has transformed me
Mm.
um, from some of the things that I've been through, and just who I am at 31 versus 21. I feel like I can really look at somebody and give them grace for where they are. And it's such a hats off to me because it just wasn't what I used to do.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
was I was like, I'll tell you about yourself and how it looks and how it should look. If you get no, I mean, just any and everything. And it's just like I appreciate who I am now, and just
Mhm.
literally, it seems so basic and elementary, but the fruits of the spirit. Like I always think
Mm.
about that. What are the fruits of the spirit? And the main one that I struggled with past tense, is just being kind.
Mm.
And I just want to add one more thing to that if I can.
Yeah.
I feel like because people have known me in the past to be that way, even family members, sometimes people will hold you to who you used to be.
Yes.
And sometimes even their presence may bring out things of your past or ways of your past, but just really owning who God has made you to be right now, and not letting anybody else tell you, well, I know she probably gonna do this, or she would probably say that, or she would probably want that. And people love to just tell you about who you are.
Right.
And I
Right.
think that I am confident in who I am today.
Mm.
And even if people try to say, well, she, what they used to know about me, I don't let that take away from where God has brought me from and who I am
Mm.
today. But yes, what about you?
Ooh, I think the biggest shock for me has been the way that I have kind of made room for people, let people in. You know, that has been a true journey for me, to not flee at the first sign of distress, or the first sign of conflict, or the first sign of they're not acting the way that I think they should be acting. You know what I mean?
I'm
Um,
so proud. I'm so proud.
Thank you, girl. Girl, I'm still a work in progress. But no, that's been the biggest shock, that I have really been able to open up, because I didn't see this coming, honestly. I didn't see this happening, because it's just been like this. It's just the way it's been. That's the way it is. I think also something that has surprised me is, I guess, this concept of, like we were saying before, there are different friends for different things,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
that's okay. Just accepting that that's okay. And not everybody's going to be your best friend. So those were kind of my like preliminary things. I think the one thing that has shocked me, just took me completely by surprise, that I actually realized maybe about a month ago, and I think it was you that kind of pointed this out. So
Oh Lord.
I was always looking for my best friend. Like, I want a best friend. I want somebody who I can be so open with, who, we could talk about anything, who hears me, who listens to me. I was just looking for this best friend who looked a certain, like this, our friendship looked a certain way.
Yeah.
And I wanted them to be available. I wanted, to be able to talk to them whenever I wanted to, I wanted to have access to them. I realized I wasn't going to get that. And I had already, I wasn't going to get
I'm
that.
the one who made you see that. Okay.
Right. But what I realized was my husband is that person.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I know that's not always the case. I know there's this thing about, if your husband has to be your best friend, and I don't necessarily think so, but I realized for me, that's the case,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that
Yeah.
really just surprised me, because I've always seen Ray as like, yeah, he's my best friend. Yeah, he's my husband. He's my best friend. But then I was always still looking for, I guess, a female best friend to be, whatever I thought a best friend was supposed to be. But as I thought about that, I'm like, man, he's really the only person who has access to me so intimately right now. And
yeah.
the things that I was looking for, making a checklist of what I need in my best friend, he's checking all the boxes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the one thing that I would say, like, if you're looking for a specific person, like open that perspective of what that will look like, because they could be closer than you realize. You just got to open that scope of what you're looking for, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that is so true. And just knowing that when we create this fairy tale idea of things and how they should look and how they should be, sometimes when they don't turn out that way, it is disappointing. But knowing that God's way is better and realizing that Ray's best friend was probably so amazing and refreshing.
Right.
to have that realization, like, oh, okay.
Right. Let me stop looking. Yeah. But this has been such an amazing conversation. It's been so full. It's so rich. I love you so much, friend.
I love you too. And just thank you for having me on. And I just want to say one thing about you. I feel like just the things, like, just to go along with your shock factor about yourself, it's been a joy to watch you blossom and just like completely burst out of your shell. Like, it's been an absolute joy. And I am so inspired by you. And just for you to be on this platform right now, like, I know this is like just the beginning for you. So just keep doing it. And your obedience to God is clearly a testament to what your life looks like right now. So I am just proud. I'm proud to be your friend and proud to be along for the ride.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I really do. I want to thank Kristen Dean for joining me in the Spacious Place, guys.
Yay, the Spacious Place.
It's been such a joy to have her. I'm excited for what we have coming up next. We are going to dive a little bit deeper, but we're going to be going within. I know this episode we kind of talked about kind of some external relationships, but we're going to be going deeper, and we're going to be going within ourselves. And so I am super excited for our next episode. But until then, this has been The Spacious Place with Andrea Best. You've been listening to The Spacious Place with Andrea Best, brought to you by CKJ Live. Psalm 118:5 says, "When hard pressed, I cried to the Lord. He brought me into a spacious place." Come back and join me as we make more room in our lives to be the women we were created to be. Let's live in the spacious place.